We're all set. Whenever you want.
Mayor, it's now 7 o'clock whenever you're ready.
Good evening and welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees for the Village of Woodridge for this Thursday, July 15th, 2021. We call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kagan. Present. Trustee Abbott.
Present.
Trustee Krusek.
Present.
Trustee Page.
Present.
Trustee Martinez.
Present.
Trustee Blair.
Present.
Mayor Cunningham.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. If you would please join us in a moment of silence. And as we dedicate tonight's meeting to all of our Woodridge Strong neighbors impacted directly and indirectly by the devastating tornado on June 20th of this year. If we could take a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Now, if we could join together for the Pledge of Allegiance being led by our audience at Village Hall this evening.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we are honored to be able to move to the appointments of new commissioners for our advisory commissions at the Village of Woodridge. Going to ask that, and I'm pleased to introduce the two commissioners that are hopefully joining us this evening. But first, I would like to ask for a motion to appoint Miss Angie Weld and recommend her appointment to the Board of Police Commissioners for the term of July 15th, 2021 through April 30th, 2024. And I would invite Angie to please come up to the podium.
So I'll move Trustee Krusek.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek. And a second, please.
Second, Trustee Martinez.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. All those in favor, please sign aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The motion is approved, and we welcome Angie to the podium with our clerk.
Repeat after me. I, Jennifer Schneid. Oh, geez. You're not Jennifer. I'm sorry. I, Angie Weld,
I, Angie Weld,
having been appointed to the office of Board of Police Commissioner,
having been appointed to the Office of Police Commissioners,
Board of Police Commissioner
Board of Police Commissioners
in the Village of Woodridge,
in the Village of Woodridge,
in the counties of DuPage, Will, and Cook,
and the counties of DuPage, Will, and Cook,
aforesaid, do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Board of Police Commissioner,
I will
discharge
discharge
the duties of
the duties of
Board of Police Commissioner
Board of Police Commissioner
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Angie, and welcome.
Should we sign these now? Sure. There's me. Gina's at home.
And I'll sign those tomorrow. Angie, on behalf of the Village Board and the Village of Woodridge, we congratulate you and we thank you so much for your raising your hand to be considered as a new Board of Police Commissioner for the Village of Woodridge. We thank you so much and we look forward to your long service in our community and outstanding service. We welcome you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite to the podium Jennifer Schneid. Good evening and welcome. And I would like to recommend Jennifer to the appointment on the Police Pension Board for the term of July 15th, 2021 through April 30th, 2024.
So
Motion,
moved, trustee Krusek.
Thank you, trustee Cruz. Second, a second, please.
Second, trustee Blair.
Thank you, trustee Blair. All those in favor, please sign aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And our clerk will do the swearing in for us.
Okay. Please repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I, Jennifer Schneid,
I, Jennifer Schneid,
having been appointed to the office of Police Pension Board Member
having been appointed to the position of Police Pension Board Member
in the Village of Woodridge
in the Village of Woodridge,
in the counties of DuPage, Will, and Cook,
in the counties of DuPage, Will, and Cook,
aforesaid,
aforesaid,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
of affirm
of affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Police Pension Board Member
the duties of Police Pension Board Member
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Welcome. Now you have to sign something. Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jennifer. We welcome you, and it's my honor to introduce you to our village board and our community as the newest Police Pension Board Commissioner for the Village of Woodridge. We thank you so much, along with Angie, for wanting to serve our community. And we welcome you, and we're excited to have both of you join our commission. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move to comments from the public. We will pause to acknowledge any written public comments that have been received prior to our meeting that do not relate to an item on tonight's agenda. Going to ask if we have any items this evening.
Mayor, we do not have any written public comments that have been received.
Thank you so much. And then I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public via Zoom this evening wishing to comment on items that are not related to tonight's agenda.
Mayor, there was nobody enrolled in the Zoom session.
Okay, thank you very much. Going to ask now if there are any members of the public present this evening that wish to make a comment on items not related to this evening's agenda.
Mayor, we do have one member of the public who would like to make a comment this evening to the board.
Okay, thank you
And,
so much.
Good evening, and if you would please approach the podium.
Ma'am, commenters have 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to identify your name and address for the record. And then when you get to about 2.5 minutes, I'll tell you got 30 seconds.
No problem.
Okay? So why don't you go ahead and identify yourself?
My name is Fabian Shante Lawson. For the record, my birthday is May the 11th, 1990, and I'm originally from Jackson, Mississippi. I currently live in your DuPage County area where I called the police on my abusive ex. I want to make you aware of that. And the police called DCFS on me, who got me indicated for neglect and child endangerment, which I never done to my child. On December 15, I was attacked right outside of my house, and I was arrested by one of your Ridge police officers because I called the police wrongfully arrested by him. Right now, I'm currently facing 2 indications and 4 misdemeanors on my name. I have a degree in biological science, and I was working in Will County as a guest teacher for 4 years, and I'm working towards my master's in education. I don't have to be in your county or your state. So just as I came here with a free name and I came here with my son, that's what I plan on leaving with. Or I plan on working here and staying and doing exactly that. So I want to make you aware that I have 2 indications and 4 misdemeanors of your county just because of Woodridge police. And I currently live in Woodridge right now. Right now, my public defender, because I can't afford a lawyer, is sending me towards outpatient treatment, whatever that is, which I didn't never consent to. And I never asked to be. I asked for a trial because I have video on my phone where he wrongfully arrested me. I have video of my phone of speaking to this DCFS officer that didn't properly investigate me and indicated me for putting my child in danger. My child was never put in danger or neglected by me. Is my time up? I want to make you aware of that, and I want to ask you for certain, what type of options do you think I have for your county or your state when it comes to this? Instead of being sent to outpatient treatment with the possibility of a diagnosis that I've never had, ever been thought about, ever been talked about, ever been discussed, and I'm now 31.
Ma'am, just so you know, during this comment period, it's literally for comment. It's not a question and answer thing.
Oh,
So
it's not a question.
I understand you have
Okay, I want to
questions.
make you aware of it,
Yes,
and I also would like options. So since it's on the record, maybe someone can contact me with further assistance concerning the situation.
Ms. Lawson, I'd like to give you my business card, so that I will contact you tomorrow. If you could
Okay.
please reach me there. And we'll
That
talk
sounds
further.
great.
Okay,
I would like to take that now because I no longer need to be here after this.
sure. Thank you. I'll come down by you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Administrator Stonich. We will now provide members of our public an opportunity to provide their comments on any items that do appear on this evening's board agenda. Going to ask if there are any written public comments that have been received prior to our meeting this evening and enter those into the public record, please.
Mayor, we have received no written public comments.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any members of the public present or via Zoom who desire to make a public comment relating to an item on this evening's agenda, please.
Mayor, there's nobody enrolled in the Zoom public comment participation login. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Going to ask now if there's any members of the public present in our audience this evening that wish to comment on items appearing on tonight's agenda, please.
Mayor, it doesn't appear anyone wishes to make a comment.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and move to our next item, which is the omnibus. I'm going to ask please for a motion to accept items A and B. A motion, please.
So move, Trustee Page.
Thank you, Trustee Page, and a second, please.
Second, Trustee Blair.
Thank you, Trustee Blair. Is there a request for any item to be separately considered this evening? Seeing no one, I'm going to ask our administrator if he would please read the items that appear on our omnibus.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham. Members of the board, good evening. Item A is the credit card registers for April and May of 2021. And last item B are the accounts payable registers for June 11th, June 18th, June 25th, and July 2nd of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page,
Aye.
trustee Martinez,
Aye.
trustee Blair,
Aye.
trustee Kagan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Under presentation of communication and the mayor's report, I do have a report this evening, and as it has been nearly a month since our village was devastated by an EF3 tornado, as our community comes together, recovering, rebuilding, and replanting, we would like everyone to know that we as a village, as a community, are working diligently to help each and every one of our members in our community. We're doing so with compassion and a heart for our neighbors, for we know this has been a very trying time. We are heartbroken about the loss in our community, and we are here to continue to support and guide our neighbors through this recovery and rebuilding process. I would like to share a community update on just some of the priorities that the village continues to focus on. As we continue to recover and do recovery work, we have mobilized our public works crews throughout the affected neighborhoods, focusing on such items as performing comprehensive reinspection of our parkway tree inventory in all the affected areas, and removing hazardous hanging tree limb and identifying additional parkway trees that may need to be removed. We continue to conduct an inventory of parkway tree stumps in approximately 300 locations so that we can begin to develop a stump grinding and removal plan. We continue to survey and inventory various streetlights and related equipment that was damaged during the tornado and coordinate repair and replacement on all of those affected equipment and lighting. Inspecting street signs and scheduling repair and replacement of signs that were damaged. We continue to coordinate forestry debris collection and damaged storm debris curbside collection in the affected neighborhoods. And we will be coordinating the timing of one final remaining sweep through the affected areas for storm-related debris collection. We've coordinated with Commonwealth Edison for removal of utility poles and utility debris remaining on private property. We continue to oversee the contract tub grinding and debris hauling operations at the drop-off site located at 71st and Woodridge Drive. We continue to assess the remaining forestry tree debris on Crabtree Creek and formulating a removal plan of any remaining tree debris that poses a potential hazard. On July 8th, Governor Pritzker announced that he was seeking a disaster declaration from the U.S. Small Business Administration that would make available critical financial assistance to those most affected by our June 20th tornado. If approved, eligible residents and businesses in DuPage County would be able to apply for low-interest long-term loans to help with their recovery process. Our community development staff, along with our mutual aid partners, worked tirelessly to complete the private property uninsured damage assessment within the first week after the tornado, which was the key step in the state's disaster declaration process. Earlier this week, IEMA officials and representatives of the Small Business Administration were on site in Woodridge to finalize the initial uninsured loss assessment, which will be used in the SBA's final determination. We remain hopeful that DuPage County will qualify as a disaster area, which will then make available SBA's federal low interest loan programs, and will share that news as soon as we know and as soon as we receive the word from our SBA partners. The rebuilding process, as we know, the tornado has taken its toll on many of our neighbors and their homes and their neighborhoods. Of over the 900 structures assessed by the village, over 30 homes are considered a total loss. Approximately 150 structures sustained significant damage, and over 400 homes sustained some level of damage. The village has been pivoting our operations to expedite as much as possible for permit review and approval to help our residents and contractors expedite their scheduling of repair for all of our neighbors' homes that are impacted. To further put the permit volume into perspective, the village has processed over 150 roof permits alone just since June 20th. By comparison, for this same period last year, the village reviewed and approved approximately 20 roof permits. Understandably, the tornado's destruction has sadly altered in a dramatic fashion the beloved character of many of our neighborhoods. And we know and appreciate that many neighbors who may have not sustained the same level of damage as others are anxious to see the visual charm of our community and their neighborhood returned to their former glory as soon as possible. We know that the rebuilding process will take time and will take longer than some would like. Please know that many of our neighbors have suffered great loss and continue to work diligently in rebuilding their lives, their homes, and their spirits. The village board and I understand that the character and visual appearance of our neighborhoods is something held very near and dear to all of us. And I assure you that the village will help facilitate and support our residents, the contractors, through this very important next steps of the rebuilding. I kindly ask for everyone's patience and understanding as we transition through the rebuilding phase over the coming months. And please let us be kind to one another and offer our support to all of our neighbors. The village board and I recognize the importance of replacing our neighborhood tree canopy, which was destroyed by the tornado. Expanding our parkway tree budget for the spring of 2022 and beyond will be one of the many areas of focus on the board's budget and deliberation process coming up soon. The village is in early discussions with Morton Arboretum about a potential partnership to help partially fund the replanting of private property trees. The village is also in early conversations with other like-minded organizations who have expressed a potential interest in financially supporting private property tree reforestation in Woodridge. As those talks further develop, the village will be sure to share all the details with all of our neighbors who are interested in replanting on their private property. All the trees that were lost during the tornado is something that we are considering and looking at and want to help with. Ongoing resident relief efforts and the neighbors helping neighbors. In close coordination and partnership with dedicated volunteers, local faith communities, and nonprofit agencies, the village continues to work tirelessly to help identify our most vulnerable populations that were impacted by the tornado event and are in need of assistance. Through this impressive work, we have received contact from approximately 190 individuals and families that were in need of some form of immediate assistance due to the impact of the tornado on their lives. Following the Red Cross Mutual Agency Resource Center event the weekend right after the storm, the village and its partners have been coordinating Neighbors Helping Neighbor events, which have been generously hosted by St. Scholastica. Currently, our Neighbors Helping Neighbors Give events are being supported by generous donations from our neighbors, businesses, faith communities, and organizations, all working together. And we can definitely share this, that helping hands from all over, and I mean all over, have been here to help us get through the aftermath of the tornado that hit our community so hard. Our next Give event will be held this Friday, the 16th of July, from 4 to 7 p.m. at St. Scholastica, and also on Saturday, July 17th from 9 until noon. All of our impacted neighbors are invited. Also, the village continues to offer affected residents the ability to call our tornado relief hotline. The number is 630-719-4901. Neighbors in need are encouraged to call this number and just leave a message with your name and contact information and the type of support you are seeking. And then we will know how to help you going forward and be able to help connect you with other appropriate resources to help you through. Many of our neighbors have been asking how they can help. And as we continue our recovery operations, there is still a lot that we can do to help each other get through. Please consider donating food, paper goods, snacks, water, juice, personal care items, and anything that you think would help our Woodridge neighbors. Through our local churches, we will be moving our Neighbors Helping Neighbors events throughout our community. If you would also please consider donating to the Woodridge Rotary's Tornado Relief Fund. The Woodridge Rotary Club is a 501c3 and is currently collecting donations to help all those in our community impacted by the tornado on June 20th. Your contributions are tax deductible to the maximum extent allowed by law. Also, please consider to help our wonderful organization based in Woodridge, the West Suburban Community Pantry. The Village of Woodridge website has a Neighbors Helping Neighbors tornado fundraiser page that highlights ongoing initiatives, where the charitable proceeds will go and how it will help in tornado relief. Please check out the Village's website for updates as well. The Village Board, the Village of Woodridge, and I are so grateful to all of our first responders, our public works departments, our mutual aid partners, all of the communities that have come to Woodridge and helped us through, all of our volunteers, and the outpouring of support from our residents, our businesses, and our neighbors. We are so very fortunate to have many social service agencies and nonprofits committed to our community's tornado recovery and our rebuilding efforts. In Woodridge, we know we're all in this together and that we're stronger together. Please continue reaching out to your neighbors, your friends, and offering that kindness, the Woodridge Helping Hand kindness, and the support that everyone needs to get through these challenging times together. The spirit in Woodridge is strong and resilient. We know Woodridge strong and Neighbors Helping Neighbors. That's how we've gotten through. On behalf of our village board, please take good care and stay strong. And we thank you for all that you're doing, all that you're helping, and everyone that you're helping and touching in their lives. It truly means so much. Thank you very much. That is my report. Administrator Stonich, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham. The first item this evening is item A. It's Resolution 2021-67. It's a resolution to approve certain temporary provisions related to COVID, particularly the drive-through facility at Woodridge Clinic over on Woodridge Drive and 75th Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-67.
So moved, trustee Page.
Thank you. In a second, please.
Second, trustee Martinez.
Thank you, trustee Martinez. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page,
Aye.
trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
trustee Kagan,
Aye.
trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item B is Resolution 2021-68. It's a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute a contract with an electric aggregation supplier. And this evening, we do have a brief presentation by staff, and our NIMAC consultants are here, Sharon Durling. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and trustees.
Good evening.
I think you may have before you, is this on?
Thank you. You may have before you bids, results of bids received that the village may elect to choose or not accept for renewal of your electric aggregation program that expires in October, but a contract would be needed to be signed in the next week or so. If you'll look at the blue portion, just to let you know, we went out to bid to seek savings to see if we could save money for ratepayers versus the ComEd rate. And as you'll see, none of the pricing offers any savings. So that's and put down at the bottom. At the top, we have essentially there's two choices: to suspend the program and all ratepayers would move back to ComEd. They'll get a notice from ComEd in September telling them the aggregation program has ended. The other alternative is to renew, and Eligo Energy, headquartered in Chicago, has the best offers. So the benefit would be, in addition to paying exactly the ComEd rate, you could go up to 100% green renewable energy to support all of the consumption by your residents and small businesses. And there's a small civic contribution that would be available. In addition to the green kind of going backward, there are other options too. 50%, a smaller to achieve EPA certification, or no green for a little bit larger contribution. And with that, I'm available for questions. Or also can choose a one, or this is just a one-year term with Eligo.
Okay, so it is a one-year term. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, Trustee Krusek.
so what you're saying is that if we went with Eligo, there would be no disadvantage to any resident compared to ComEd pricing at all, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And if we went, we would have the choice of which of those green options to take?
You would select one of the four options, yes.
Okay. And if we did this, what we would end up with is a company that we are basically putting forward for our residents to choose from, as opposed to what could happen if we don't have an aggregation program and every other company that's out there, good or bad, can be in here looking to say, hey, we have the best deal, which could very well not be the best deal.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek. Any other board member? Okay, thank you. Administrator Stonich, next steps on this item?
Yes, Mayor, before you is a proposed resolution to join the electric aggregation program. So tonight, we would need a board vote, one way or the other, assuming that there is a motion. But to Trustee Krusik's point, there are a kind of a choice within a choice. And so if the direction is to, if there is a motion to enter into the electric aggregation program as proposed, we would need to know which choice of green energy or RECs you would want within that decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021-68.
So move, Trustee Krusek, and I would put for my motion the 50% green option.
Second, Trustee Page.
Thank you, Trustee Page. Any further discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, please, Trustee Abbott.
Yeah, I would just like to register a few comments. I'm going to be voting no against this. I have a real moral and ethical problem with this type of business being done in the village. This is a for-profit company that's going to make money, and they make money off this project. They have a procedure by which they will give money back to the village, but the residents don't get even 1 penny. And I have a hard time being comfortable with a procedure whereby a private company comes in, figures out a way to make money off our residents, and our residents don't get even 1 penny of relief off it. I have a real problem with that. If this is something that would benefit everyone, I would be in favor of it. If it would benefit our residents, I would be in favor of it, but it doesn't. It benefits a private company that comes in here trying to make money off our residents. And our residents can't even get a penny worth of relief on their energy bills. So I'm against it for that reason.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, trustee Krusek.
I understand trustee Abbott's point and his disagreement with going ahead with this, but I would just basically point out that Commonwealth Edison is making money off of our residents and we aren't getting anything back from them. And I don't think that when we're about to enter into budget discussions and we're going to be looking at how we can save $1,000 here and $2,000 there, that there's anything wrong with getting a contribution from the company that we go with the electrical aggregation, along with the fact that we have some leverage over this company if they're doing business in Woodridge, as opposed to just anyone else that comes in. So I understand trustee Abbott's points. I just disagree with them.
Thank you so much.
Madam
Anyone-
Mayor?
Yes, please.
If I could just respond, ComEd is a private company, but it also is a regulated utility that has to go through various procedures with the state of Illinois in order to get rates, the rates that they want. There's oversight. There's a lot of, the government does a very good job of overseeing it and making sure that they have to jump through many hoops. All of that, none of that is done by NIMEC. So I think there is a fundamental difference between ComEd, which is a regulated utility, and a private company like NIMEC, which is a for-profit company. That's all.
Thank you.
Madam
Anyone
Mayor,
else? Yes, please. Trustee
Trustee
Martin.
Yes. I'm a little confused. I was under the impression that if we go with Alligo Energy, that's mainly for the, say, the green power aspect of things, but that the residents will be receiving or paying the same rate that ComEd will be charging if we didn't go with Alligo. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Sure, maybe I'm going to come back up. Thanks.
So there could, so my point is that while I understand trustee Abbott's point of being concerned about supporting a third party, if we don't do this, we're going to be exposed to dealing with ComEd one-on-one and be charged rate $1, whatever the rate ComEd wants. If we deal with Alligo, my understanding is that the same charge will be passed on to the residents. Is that correct?
Identical charge, correct, trustee Martinez.
Anyone else, please?
Madam Mayor, just a question.
Please, trustee Blair.
How long does this contract go for?
12 months.
If there's no other question, I do have a question. Administrator Stonich, could you please tell me how long have we worked with NIMEC?
So our relationship with NIMEC, this would be the first on the residential side for electric aggregation, but we have a multi-year relationship and a positive relationship on the commercial side for our street lights and our water pumping and sewer pumping facilities, in which they have been our consultant and broker. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else, please? If nothing further, I'm going to ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Page,
Question.
Do you want to know which option I choose along with my vote? Or just vote first?
If I may, trustee Page, the motion that's on the floor was from trustee Krusek, which included the 50% green. So if you'd be in favor, just for example, of selecting Alligo Energy, but only if it's 100% green or 0% green or anything other than 50% green, you would vote no on the pending motion. If that motion fails, then of course the floor would be open for someone to make a different motion.
Aye to the 50% green.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. So was that a aye? You're voting aye, correct?
Aye.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Blair?
Aye.
Trustee Kagan?
Nay.
Trustee Abbott,
Nay.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item C is Resolution 2021-69. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor and village clerk to accept a certain grant of temporary easement. This is specifically for 8700 Havens in Woodridge. And this resolution, approves the acceptance of a temporary easement from the property owner of Christ the Servant Catholic Church and to enable the village to complete a specific stormwater improvement project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could please ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021-69.
So move, trustee Martinez.
Thank you, trustee Martinez, and a second, please.
Second, trustee Krusek.
Thank you, trustee Krusek. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
motion passes.
Next item D is Resolution 2021-70. It's a resolution awarding a one-year extension of the janitorial services contract. This is bid number 2017-04. Contract award would be, or extension, would be to Unimax Management Corp. for the period of August 1st, 2021 to July 31st of 2022. Thank you.
Going to ask please for a motion to approve resolution 2021-70.
So move, trustee Blair.
Thank you, trustee Blair, and a second, please.
Second, trustee Page.
Thank you, trustee Page. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, if our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
Trustee Martinez,
Aye.
motion passes.
Next item E is Resolution 2021-71. It's a resolution approving change order number 01 to the agreement with DCG Roofing Solutions, Melrose Park, Illinois, for bid 2021-03. This is related to the One Plaza Drive roofing improvements, and the change order is in the amount of $19,890. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could please have a motion to approve resolution 2021-71.
So moved, trustee Krusek.
Thank you, trustee Krusek, and a second, please.
Second, trustee Blair.
Thank you, trustee Blair. Any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, trustee Krusek.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
On the increase of 4.2% of the project cost, that's of just the roof repair, correct? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else, please? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kagan. Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
motion passes.
Next up is a update to the board on our facilities improvement project. And we have our design build team along with our owner's reps here this evening who've joined us. Their presentation will be supplemented throughout by staff as well. And have them introduce themselves, and welcome, gentlemen.
Yes, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. This evening, we've got a PowerPoint presentation for you to give you an update as to where we are with the
Graham, I'm just going to
project.
ask you to remember to identify yourself.
Oh, sorry.
We know who you are, but the public. might.
Well, Graham Harwood, principal of CCS International, owner's representative. And in helping us with the presentation and putting it together, we've got Ryan Berry from Harbor, Chris Kozak from Harbor, Greg Meadows from Studio GC, and Andy Joseph from CCS. So just to recap slightly, we'd like to remind you that there are 5 sections to this particular project, site development, the police facility, the public works, salt storage and coal storage, the immediate repairs to One Plaza Drive, and the renovation of One Plaza Drive. So just to give you a brief glimpse of the update, and that'll be dealt with by our team in the presentation that'll go into it in a lot more detail. And you'll see during the presentation, the team will reveal some of the exciting solutions they've been reached in coordination with the police department and the village in getting to where we are. The original schedule, that has not changed, and we remain on schedule. Design will continue on all fronts as it has done in the past on all 5 of those sections that we talked about. But the critical path will still go through the site development and permits, and that'll start with the preliminary site engineering submission and approval. It continues with the zoning and entitlements, and then we've got DuPage County sewer and water permit, as well as EPA sewer and water permit. We've completed the schematic design stage, complete with estimates, and we're still on budget. We're proceeding with design development. So those are some of the very brief highlights. I'm going to hand over to Craig now, who's going to expand significantly on advising you where we are with the progress and what's been going on. Thank you.
Again, my name is Craig Meadows. I'm with Studio GC. I'm the architect and project manager working on this project as a part of the design build team with Harbor Construction. I'm here today to give you a generalized update on the progress of the drawings and the buildings and all the other elements associated with that. So when we start off, the first thing we do is we kind of look to create goals to kind of create some context and assure success on this project. So those are basically divided into 2 sections. One of them is efficiency. We want to create a building and spaces and site that has operational efficiency. It meets what it needs and exceeds and provides a better resource, a better location for them in the new location. Additionally, we want to be responsible. We want to be responsible environmentally, and we want to be responsible from an occupancy perspective. We need to remember that this is a 24/7, at least on the police station side and sometimes on public works. That is a 24/7 facility. There are people there all day, all night, working all the time. They need a place that is comfortable and good for them to work. That is also positive and engaging. So, and what we realize as architects as we kind of proceed in our careers, that you really need to design diligently, or you miss opportunities and you risk potential oversights. I assure you on this process, this is one of the most collaborative processes I have ever been on with anybody on any project ever. We've worked very hard as a team, had 2 to 3 meetings a week. They've been extremely open to conversations and helping us get to achieve these goals. So what have we done? We've engaged in getting the details right. We've developed a comprehensive plan with the building design, stormwater, operational to assure success. And I want to thank all the stakeholders and all the people in the process that really have helped ensure success on this project. So what we thought would be helpful to bring is an image that shows the Janes Avenue site in a greater context. I provided a number of diagrams on that. The kind of colorful middle part is the site. The site is bordered east and west by Janes Avenue on the west and 355 on the east. On the north and south sides, directly adjacent to the property, are office parks and some manufacturing areas. Due east is the middle school, if I recall correctly. And then to the kind of northeast off of the intersection to Janes is the closest residential area. I thought it'd be important for you guys to realize the context of that. And then the star, of course, is where we're standing today. So. A part of this site plan, though, is really kind of a lot of work to determine how all these different parts and pieces work together. In designing it, we were researching options, and it became very apparent that a revision would help be the best solution. If you recall correctly, we had effectively showed 3 buildings. We showed a 1-story or 2-story police station, a future public works box that has not generally changed, and then a single storage building that was a combination of salt and cold storage. But as we began to evaluate and really work on how the operational efficiencies would be in the layout of the space, we quickly determined that there were 2 changes that needed to be made. One of them is we revised the police station from a 2-story facility to a single-story facility. That provided a lot of operational efficiency, that allowed time to response, better culture for the people that are working in the facility. There's no more we're on the second floor, you're on the first floor kind of mentality. And then also from a building construction efficiency, we were able to eliminate a lot of components that would have to come in a two-story building, which reduced the overall square footage by about 2,000 square feet from where we were when we presented last time. On the public works side is on the far east side or the right side of this image. We revised from one single precast building to two separate buildings, a salt storage building on the north and in a cold storage location on the south. I'll get into more details on that later. So here we have a nearly final master plan. It takes into account and allows for the highest and best use of all the sites. We evaluated parking, storage, access, scheduling, future needs, and we continue to be diligent on our efforts associated with that. A part of the process, particularly on the architect side, we really look and we research at what other facilities are doing in the area. It's very important for everyone to realize what the current and highest best use for police stations in particular are. We looked at those facilities, but we recognize that there is no particular formula. We are designing a building or buildings for Woodridge that react to Woodridge needs and react to the police and the public works specific needs here. So while I show you examples of other facilities, those are just to give you some idea of what other people are building in the surrounding communities. Up top, you see Countryside. That's a prairie style building, as you can kind of tell. It's a municipal center, so it contains both police and the village administration in it. It has a kind of impressive community appearance, primarily because it's got a lot of glass, a lot of stone, and a lot of brick. But it works well in that community. Right below that is Cary Police Department in McHenry County. That is due to be completed. It's currently under construction. It has what we see in a lot of police facilities these days is really a prominent main entry, and that becomes your primary focus. A lot of glass, but everything else around the outside of the building, and you can kind of see hints of it, are small punched windows to recede into the background. At the bottom of that is Glen Ellen. This one deviates a little bit because it's a two-story building. They kind of use some interesting materiality on a relatively simple elevation of a building to show a dark band up at the top, breaks down the massing, but then they also chose a lighter brick that allows to kind of give some hints and ideas of stone of sorts. So it's a kind of economical way of getting a similar look without the expense of specific stone. Additionally, they used a kind of a really interesting feature over their lobby to kind of project that openness. Their admin is on the entire second area, so that tall ceiling begins to make some sense. New Lenox is one of the older facilities I'm showing you. This one was completed in 2014. The important thing to note about this one is it has a very particular kind of postmodern traditional type design. That is very specifically because it's in a village campus. So there's the other buildings in that campus all have a similar look, and they wanted to maintain a singular village presence. The other thing that does is they really wanted to make sure it kind of had a two-story building. It was a two-story building, but they wanted to kind of proportion-wise look like a single-story building. So they basically built a very large roof over the whole thing and then created larger openings to hide the smaller openings of the windows. Next is Peru. This one is also under construction. Some of the other ones we talked about show that they emphasize the entry. This one took a different tact and emphasized the public meeting rooms on the corner, which also equates to a whole lot of glass and brick and stone. And then the kind of sloped ceiling kind of gives it a little bit of a modern design. Lastly is St. Charles. We actually went to visit this particular facility. That is completed this year. They used a lot of glass to create an open feeling, but they also did a couple of other interesting things to kind of create an economical construction process. They used precast in the kind of like the back of house. So the non-public areas is a precast plank system. And then additionally, it's in the Fox Valley area of Illinois. So everybody loves their Fox Valley, their stone, which ironically is taken out of Wisconsin, but nobody else knows that. So the next step is then we take a look at what are the various building studies and what are we looking at here. We are looking at just kind of some concepts and ideas as we move forward, but we thought it was important to kind of give you an idea of where we're proceeding and some of the things under consideration. The design ideas we focus on when we're looking at exterior designs of buildings is we look on massing, which is the parts and pieces and how large and small they are. when we're looking at that, we're specifically looking at proportion and rhythm. Those begin to provide some balance and harmony to it so that you can feel as if the building is kind of well composed. Additionally, we want to make sure that this has a particularly approachable and nice street presence from Janes Avenue. But we also want to welcome and identify an entry. This building's a little unique on its site because the primary focus from the roadway is also not the main entrance. Almost every other building I showed you, the main entrance faces the main road. So it's a little bit of a design challenge that we need to work through. But in the end, we want that balance to be opening and welcome, but we also want to balance off that it needs to be a safe and secure facility for the officers and the inhabitants. So between the two options, you'll see a couple of common elements. If you look on the top of this particular one, there's a long center spline. We're utilizing that as a common corridor and everything else is organized around that. You'll see a little bit more of that later. But that center spline allows light to be brought into the middle of the building. It's one of the elements that we're trying to focus on as a part of our sustainability efforts to preserve and enhance daylight experience within the depth of the building. Both options look at a featured entrance, but we also need to kind of emphasize the public and then push the kind of security functions like detention and sally port to the kind of the back half of the building, which is behind that long horizontal line. So what you see here is concept one. It has an articulated entrance, which brings it forward. We created more of a memorial and plaza to it. There's a little kind of inspiration image in the corner that we often look at as we come up with concepts. That's the Washington, D.C. Police Memorial. So we're looking at this one as a plaza being an extension of the building, either as a part of a memorial or some other featured element. In the end, James Street or James Avenue becomes the beacon to the community. That center spline comes out, becomes a lit column at the end of the building, and the other parts and pieces begin to recede away a little bit. Concept two is a bit more clean. It's more of a simplified design. It expresses a simple entry with a memorial wall type element. Then we use shading and glare control devices along the windows to kind of provide some detail and articulation at the face so that it just doesn't feel like significant kind of flat walls. But this is important to note on this one, that choices of material and texture will be very important to break up the elevations of the building so it doesn't feel like an unending elevation of a building. This is a single story, but it is quite long. But the thing to note that's very important, it's like the second thing they teach you in architecture school, is like the inside informs the outside of the building. We spend a lot of time focusing on developing a good and proper floor plan. I've highlighted two elements on there, that center dotted yellow line. That's the center spline that you saw in the other elevations. That's the hallway. So everything effectively organizes and rotates itself around that. That pops up and allows light to, again, as I said before, dive into the middle of the building. This detailed level of planning leads to an integrated building that's responsive to the extensive needs of the police department. The use of space affects the use of the particular space affects where the window is located, what views they get, what security needs they are, what site access need, and many other considerations. It's not just about what does the outside, sometimes the inside informs the outside more than what we would sometimes consider. The two views on the view on the upper left is a view of the inside of the detectives area. So that's kind of open workstations with a lot of windows to allow you to see it, but we've judiciously located that at where the site drops off so that we don't have an area where people could walk right up to the windows. On the other side kind of shows a slice through the building where we're at a public meeting room, a conference room, roll call, like it's like the most important slice of the building through that area. Now I get to the meat and potatoes. This is the floor plan. This is the official plan we have thus far. I've dashed that horizontal line, and then I provided a little arrow that shows the public entry into the building. Each color represents the department and is again organized around that hub corridor. This promotes a level of culture and family for the officers and staff. This is represented in how the area is designed. We've created a area where they call it dining, but it's effectively an extended break room, is off of the exterior of the building to allow it to get exterior views, but in a controlled area and a secure environment. Additionally, the interior of the spaces are left as open as possible with many windows and openings as possible into the adjacent corridors and adjacent spaces. As I said earlier, this is a 24/7 facility. and it's a home away from home.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that Craig's not saying that each one of these has been designed. He's gone back to the police department, gone through departments with them. It's changed it. And this just represents where we are now. It's not where we started. It's evolved in very much a collaborative manner. So
Right.
it is something that takes account very much of what the police department want and what they need.
Yeah, and I will actually say that on earlier discussions with the chief and the staff, this idea of kind of creating a culture and a family for them to work needed to be representative, even into down how we're talking about how tables and chairs are organized in the space. So it's been a very extensive and rewarding process. And we're in the process of literally talking right now about where outlets go and data jacks and computers and phones. So we're continuing to proceed on the design.
And we started with a 2-story
Yeah.
building. So we've now got a 1-story building, and we're refining that. And what's even better is we've saved on some square footage. So that, I think, is a bonus.
Mhm. Yeah, in case you're wondering, it's things like stairs and elevators and other access spaces that we don't need because the buildings don't also effectively stack on top of each other very efficiently.
I got a question.
Sure.
So basically, this is the floor plan that you have agreed to, the chief and the rest of the project team,
Yes,
30,852 square feet.
yes.
What would prevent you from going for a permit to start doing excavation work right now?
We need to continue working on the mechanical systems. So we're working on the actual energy systems associated with the building that may have some level of impact onto the design of the actual building.
But I'm not familiar with that type of a situation.
Okay.
You have a site plan already. You're aware that you got to move dirt in
Mhm.
order to build this building. You have a configuration that is acceptable to all the parties in the project. Why couldn't you proceed with just the excavation aspect of this so you can improve on the timing of the completion of the project?
We have at the moment no sign off by anybody from planning or from EPA, DuPage County, sewer and water. We're still receiving comments on the site development as well. We've just got those in from V3 just this week, and that's very, very preliminary. So we've got corrections to make on that. The actual site development drawings, that's not a construction drawing. That is a design development drawing. There's still refinements to be made on that and quite a lot of work to be done before we could start construction on that. But we haven't got permits. We haven't got the zoning and entitlement, all of those things we got to have before we could even put a spade in the ground.
See, but this is the issue I got. And you responded to some of my questions.
Yeah.
I believe. You have done a tremendous job here, laying this out. I compliment the chief,
Mhm.
everybody involved, because the amount of detail is unbelievable. But with my experience on construction, you could start excavating before you finalize all this detail. So what is preventing you from knowing that we have a lot of excavation, a lot of dirt to move? What do you need to do to start looking at improving that schedule and just start moving dirt to get this done?
I think we can look at that and see if we can evaluate it. And at this point in time, we need to confer with our civil engineers to determine what they need to get done so they can submit for DuPage County Water Reclamation District or sewer and water permits, which sometimes take a little time. So we need to figure out what we need.
And now, what does the village need from a permit standpoint to issue a permit to start doing earthwork? You don't have to answer that now, but that's the question I have.
Fair enough.
In other words,
We'll take another look at it.
if we want to start moving and getting this completed, you've done a tremendous job. I mean, wow.
Thank you.
When I got this in the mail, I said, you're kidding. No, seriously, because this is a lot of detail, a lot of good work. But I'm concerned about beginning and getting
Right.
this started. So what can we do to start moving some of that pile of dirt that we know we got to move? And then we have to make a decision, and we're gonna keep it all, and we're gonna put some on the side. That's up to Chris and whoever else wants to make a decision on keeping dirt. But in the meantime, you have action moving forward, and that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, we'll investigate it.
Trustee Martin. Maybe Craig, if you can flip to one of those original slides that show the
can hear you.
entire site layout.
Is that a good one?
Is that on, Trevor? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I think really logistically, here's the issue of where we're at though in the design is the elevation on Janes Avenue is a set point. The elevation on the back of the property at 355 is a set point. The moving of the dirt is an expensive endeavor. And I think that's really what we're trying to, we want to move enough dirt to make the site viable for use without moving and spending any more money than we need to. And I think that's really the change order we're working on now is if you set Janes Avenue and you set the back of the site and you haven't properly planned for the middle and where Public Works is going to go and where doors are going to be, you may be above the ground where it's an expensive endeavor to fix that down the road. So we want to move dirt as quickly as possible as well. And that was one of the things we talked about is could we do that right away? But all of those pieces and making sure they tie together, which then tie into the stormwater and where those ponds are built and how large they're built, not just now, but for the future to allow for additional expansion. We're right there with you, but I think it's premature to be able to have that plan without getting further into, again, part of the presentation that Craig's going to go through.
Okay, I will listen to it, but I still have my point. You can't start a project without having a definite layout. And you can start excavation until you have that layout. I know the elevations. I mean, I don't have the detail, but I could tell you more if I knew the details. But something needs to be done because, yes, I agree with you that moving dirt in the middle of the winter is a concern because then you have additional costs. So what can we do to start moving dirt in the fall is my question.
Okay.
I think the drawing looks very complete, but there is an awful lot of details missing on that. So I think maybe Craig's done too good a job showing you the information. It looks more complete than it is. But yeah, we'll look into it and see if there's a way that we can do that.
Yeah, I will actually say historically, we will develop a floor plan, get that locked in, then go to our civil engineers to start working because you build from the building out. But in this particular case, we developed a strategy to allow our civil engineering to start much earlier than we normally would. But your point is well taken, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as I move on, one of the other components is salt storage. This really is a perfect example of kind of our collaborative research-based approach. We worked with the village and the public works staff to kind of just try to figure out, believe it or not, there's 3 different types of salt storage. There's the conventional dome you see, there's a precast box building, and then there's people have called it a salt shed. We've done in-depth research, we did site visits, we listened to manufacturers, and then actually in consultation, and I credit the Public Works and allowing us to engage with them. IDOT, the Illinois Department of Transportation, is moving toward this salt shed concept so that they can be more efficient with their layout. This particular shed allows the design to be kind of more economical than some of the other areas built, operationally efficient, and frankly, it's a little more environmentally sensitive because historically with salt domes, you have to dump all the salt in front of the building and then convey it in. Now they can dump it directly into the building, which allows it to be a safe and secure environment to work within. Cold storage, as I said before, was one of the other changes. This was originally a part of the other element, but what we realized by moving it to the south is that this dry, non-tempered storage space, if we moved it to the south part of the site, allows us to actually create a location to drive it through. And that's one of those areas of kind of some due diligence. We had it a spot and we realized if we moved it another 20 feet to the west, we could actually create a system that they could drive their vehicles through, load them up or unload, and then continue to move on and not have to do donuts effectively in the middle of the layout area, which allows the rest of the layout area to be more efficient in storage. This building also has something that we discovered through the process. We have a toilet facility. Now, it might seem a little weird of why a storage building has a toilet facility, but you must remember that there's no public works building on this site at this point in time. So as a part of this significant acreage, they've got people working on this end of the building. They got truck drivers showing up to drop things off. They may need to use the facilities. Lastly, there's a wash bay because there's no area out here for you to control washing off the vehicles that are using the salt. And we want to keep that salt out of the stormwater system. So we need to be able to do it interiors. And the last component, because as I mentioned before, we're building this as a non-tempered space. We don't want to expend the effort because there's no need to create a building that meets energy code requirements with insulation, with specific wall heaters, everything else. So what we have to do is we have to create a small heated space. It's the sprinkler room there so that we can create a dry pipe sprinkler system to meet fire protection requirements. The last component is something that we've actually started on that Chris kind of alluded to a minute ago, which was we're doing an investigation to do some test fits for the future public works building. It's a little difficult to see, but right now the public works building, the way the grade works off, it's a significant building. So it's got a flat floor. Well, the site starts to dive away from it about halfway through. So we only have the east half of the building that we can get drive-in access to. So to make sure that we're doing the right thing with the grading, we're doing a test fit on the inside to make sure that we don't hamper their future flexibility. That's important to note because this effort tries to do the best we can to determine if there's any unforeseen conditions, because we recognize that due diligence now and time we take now avoids future rework, which, as you mentioned before, moving earth and affecting buildings and raising and lowering them could be an expensive proposition. I'd hate to haul a whole lot of dirt off that we got to bring back on later.
We're going to be coming back in August to discuss.
And we'll talk this a little bit more in August. So that effectively takes care of everything on the Janes Avenue location, but also a part of our scope of work is to evaluate and come up with a plan for the renovation of One Plaza Place when the police leave. So as you may know, the public works staff is located in effectively the small rectangle and on the bottom of the page. We'd be looking to kind of relocate the staff to the right areas. We created effectively a set of sub goals for this. We want to get the staff in the right areas so that they're near people that they can work effectively with. We need to create more meeting room spaces. I think one thing in the past month or so that has become readily apparent is people need more place to collaborate and communicate with. And we need to create functional support spaces. The lockers are not meeting current standards. They're not functional for the way they need them right now. They're not a proper balance between men and women as need be in the future. And so in the end, we also had to adjust kind of a little bit of the layout of the building to allow a connection between the two halves, because before the building was designed, police was on the north house, public works was on the south part, and those two didn't communicate too much. There was barely even a corridor going between the two. But while we're doing that, we're also looking to try to minimize the number of walls we take down because we recognize that at some point in the future, this needs to move to a new location. But in the end, we're still concentrating on creating a space where there's a good office culture and we focus on the wellness of the occupants. This results in better retention, less absences, good place for them to work, so they're focused on their jobs.
Just to remind you, this is phase 2, so the police facility would be complete before we begin any work on this.
Yeah. Ryan, quick update on the immediate repairs.
I'm sorry, I got one more point,
Yeah.
question. On the overall layout of the property, by moving the building south and moving the driveway,
Yeah, I'll go stand.
well, go.
Want me to go to
back
the-
overall with the street.
Oh, perfect. Okay. One more. There we go.
Okay. The entry driveway now to this property will be right across from our Jefferson Junior High, which is just west of the property.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any concerns with that, Al, or have you talked to District 68 on this?
I've not had direct conversation yet, no, but we can certainly make sure they're comfortable.
Okay,
And
because
just-
I don't know what kind of traffic you will have, Brian, in and out.
Mr. Martinez said south driveway is going to be employee only, and all public entrance will be directed to the north side. Our employee
The
only.
public will be in the north side.
On the south, yeah, the one across from Jefferson Junior High is going to be employee entrance, And then
Okay,
if you go further north, that's where the public will come in.
There's a shared drive between the property to the north and this one. That's one of the,
right, but I wasn't sure.
it's a good question.
Traffic in and out.
Following up on that, when you were showing us building concept designs, so I guess what is that? North side, that's where the memorial would be,
Yes, that's the public entrance side.
the public entrance would be, okay. And then the James facing side would be, dare I say, the planar side of the building?
Well, it's, I don't think it'll end up plain, but because of the distance you're away from the building, from a
Mhm.
design perspective, you need to make bigger moves. You can't be too refined on it. So we're looking at larger planes, larger moves for that middle window so that you can attract it. We also have been in the process right now of developing the landscape plan. And there's a significant landscape component so that we make sure we meet your landscape ordinances. So there's a lot to put in that front side of the building. But you're correct on your orientation.
Can you flip forward to the internal design of the police building?
That one?
Perfect. My question is, and part of wanting this building is a space that we can grow into. So in 15 years, this building is still a air quotes good building.
Mhm.
Looking at the public space. So if I were a nonprofit group wanting a meeting room, is my only option the command center? And is that really open? And I don't even know if that really says command center.
Yeah, it says community room.
Community room,
Mhm.
okay.
So there's a community room there. Directly to the south of that on the page, there's
Mhm.
also a small conference room. Those are both on the public side. That
Okay.
conference room borders that secure corridor I was talking about. So it's also able to be used by the police during kind of their hours. So it provides some good kind of balance of use. What we could also look at, since taking your point in, is maybe adjusting that wall a little location so that that community room, conference room actually has an entrance from the lobby as well, so that you get a little more flexibility in use.
And just thinking of community groups, is there like a small kitchen here? Something I'm thinking for the rest of the board, like the library on their second floor.
Okay.
There's like a small kitchen area for when groups rent the space.
So what we have in there right now is a countertop in the back with a hand sink, a place for a small refrigerator, and a counter level for service.
And I'm also noticing in the public area, there is not a unisex bathroom.
No, we have 2 full-size bathrooms associated with that. So there's 2 multi-purpose because that bathroom is sized for the entire use of that conference room and the meeting room. So that we had to size it based on that.
Looking at the locker room situation, how much smaller is the female locker room compared to the male locker room?
I'm trying to think of it in relationship to lockers. I'm not sure the percentage off the top of my head. I want to say that it is probably
2 to 1?
I'd say it's actually a little more closer to there's, yeah, maybe 2 to 1, maybe 3 to 2 sort of thing, like 60%.
And that side of the building, the exercise room, locker room, is that the Jane side of the building?
No, the other side.
That-
The other end is the Jane side.
So the side by the mechanical room is the
Right.
Jane side?
Right.
Okay. Is there a public, and if I'm walking down Jane's, is there a public entrance there?
No,
So you would have to come around? this
you'd have to
side
come
there?
around. There's actually a quite large detention basin between you and that
Okay.
end of the building. Yeah.
And currently, I'm looking down at turquoise bluish area. There's only 2 carports.
So
Is that
that
three?
is the Sally Port. So that's a
Sally Port.
secure area to transfer anybody into the detention area necessary. What we're not showing on this plan, and you can kind of see in some of it, there's a long skinny carport that's not represented on this particular image that covered parking for police vehicles.
But knowing that side of the building is facing south,
Mhm.
if they were to bring a suspect in, there would be ample covering for their, I don't know if they get privacy, but privacy and protection.
Yeah, they would come into that's the Sally Port is an enclosed space.
Okay.
So the police vehicle would go in And
Okay.
Chief, let me know if I'm saying anything wrong. But the police vehicle would go in, the doors would close,
Uh-huh.
the person then is taken out and brought into detention. So everyone's kind of privacy, as it were, is respected.
Okay.
Can I follow up on trustee Page? Back to the locker rooms. How many officers does the male locker room accommodate and how many does the female accommodate? Do we know that?
I don't know it unfortunately off the top of my head, but I can get that information to you.
The male was 60, and I think the females was, I want to say 20, 23.
I think maybe 24, 25 is what we ended up putting in there. And then additionally, there's smaller sets of kind of utility lockers for those that don't need the big lockers as well. Any other questions? Okay. I'll let Ryan talk about the immediate repairs.
Thank you, Craig. I'll give everybody Ryan Berry, Harbor Contractors. I'll give everybody a quick update on where things stand with the immediate repairs phase of the project. So this is essentially broken down into three components. There's the re-roofing project, there's masonry improvements, and then there are HVAC improvements. So the roofing improvements phase is substantially complete as of today. That's the building now has a complete new roofing system across the whole building. I think just today they finished up the remainder of the perimeter metal coping around the building. So a couple odds and ends to finish up, but like I said, substantially complete as of today. Next week, we'll get started with the masonry improvements, which generally consists of tuck pointing certain mortar joints around the building that are in need of repair, as well as installing some new control joints, which will help prevent future issues with the mortar joints that we're experiencing now. So again, that's scheduled to begin next week, and I expect that to be wrapped up right around the middle of August. So and the HVAC improvements, that one we're expecting to start in early September. So all the major equipment associated with that has been approved. It's on order. We're replacing essentially all of the HVAC, the main HVAC equipment in the building, new boilers, as well as a new package rooftop unit. So that equipment traditionally takes a while to get. And like I said, it's on order and it's expected to arrive early September. One thing to note with what we're doing with the HVAC improvements, for this phase, we're really not doing much with the air distribution system throughout the building or the ductwork throughout the building. However, we are installing a new control system for the new equipment that we are procuring. The control equipment that's there now is pretty antiquated, and we're just essentially bringing it up to today's technology. So that new equipment will be on the new control system, but it's expandable. So when we go back after we complete the police facility and we do the heavier renovation in One Plaza Drive, any new devices or any new equipment as part of that renovation will also be controlled by the new control system that we're putting in now. So looking forward to getting that done. And are there any questions on the immediate repairs? Okay, thank you. I think Craig's going to talk a little bit more about some of the sustainability objectives.
Yeah, so one of the things we wanted to bring up, and it's a part of our goals, is like kind of describe what our objectives and our thought processes associated with sustainability. We want to make sure that you guys are kind of local leaderships in sustainable design now, but what's important to us is that we use it as a guiding principle. It's not a law, it's not a requirement, but we want to make sure that we do the right thing. And to do that, we want to make sure though that it has measurable, tangible results. We want to make sure that you get something out of that process. So to us, that also means it's a life cycle element. So materials we put in might have a recyclable content, but we want to make sure that their long-term maintenance is also taken into consideration so that you're not expending unnecessary effort, time, and resources doing that. Additionally, we might be looking at the other hand on how the mechanical system works so that it consumes as little energy as possible. We're in the process of investigating these things. Right now, we're looking at geothermal as a process, as a technology utilized, investigating solar, recycled materials. in the end, the goal is to kind of conserve. Also, we're looking at means and methods of conserving electricity from like lighting selection, and then conserve water from low flow fixtures or other elements like that. But in the end, we need to balance the sustainability with the long-term maintenance as well. We want to make sure this is a rewarding position for the village to be in. Because in the end, this all also focuses on the wellness of the inhabitants. A large focus of some of the sustainability efforts from like a LEED perspective is that there are elements that allow the building to kind of not have that initial smell, provide a healthy place for people to immediately move into and work. So like all of our paints that we use are low VOC. Basically, they don't have the smells associated with it. Carpets, materials, equipment, et cetera. One thing to note in regards to the LEED component is at this point in time, we're not pursuing LEED. There's a high initial cost associated with that, where just to manage and administer the program, so you get the plaque on the door, that paperwork process costs about $100,000 in consultant time. And then on top of that, you're very limited, or you've got to be very specific and judicious about where you pick materials from, because they got to be local, they got to be recyclable, which sometimes limits your pool of available things. So you got to spend more money to get them because they're aware that they need that. But in the meantime, we're also investigating various grants and utility rebates. We've started the process of submitting an application to Commonwealth Edison, ComEd, to determine what utility rebates they may be able to offer up. It's not locking us into anything at this point in time, but the earlier we start the process with them, the better you potentially get rebates on them from. So that's a part of us being able to do the evaluation, to come back to you in August and say, these are the very specific things, and this is the return on investment, as it were, for these elements. And we're looking at those as they apply to you. Any questions on the sustainability end?
May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
As you probably know, I'm disappointed to hear about LEED. I think a project of this magnitude, with the amount of money we're going to spend, that we forget about targeting such a critical aspect of energy. LEED is something that everybody that's doing construction should be looking at. And I understand there's additional cost. And I'm not saying we should go ahead and spend $100,000, but maybe there's a way that you can balance the scale, find a way. Maybe we don't go for, maybe we go for a silver, maybe we'll go for something. But I think LEED is a very important aspect of a project of this type.
Okay.
Architects, you should
No, the LEED was actually developed by architects, is one of the big groups that developed it. And, I'm LEED certified. I'm a LEED accredited professional. At this point, I think over half of our staff is as well. We do a lot of public work. And so one of the things we realize, and we keep doing investigation, is LEED is important. I'm not saying it's not, but there are actually other standards, like Energy Star from a mechanical perspective is a good standard that actually tracks measurable results. One of the things in a study in about 2008, 2009, they did of LEED facilities. LEED facilities were not, in fact, at least the ones they studied, were not saving as much energy as they cost, because they looked at a life cycle perspective of the building. How much energy is it taking? How much resources is it taking to run that particular building? So we focused on kind of meeting the spirit of LEED. So that's what some of the elements we're looking at. I probably potentially could get to some level of LEED with the things that we're looking at, but it takes a lot of time and effort to meet those requirements so that you can get the plaque on the door. So. Okay. And I will let Chris Kozak come up and talk about budget.
Thank you. Once again, Chris Kozak with Harbor. I'm kind of leading the budget effort on this project. And before I get into too much, I'm happy to say that the project is currently on budget. If you've seen the amount of detail and effort that's gone into this design team and all the decisions that have made, the costing component has actively been involved in all those decisions. When we're talking about 2-story, single story, we've been involved in those decisions, evaluating the costs as we go through. So probably the big item that everybody's talking about right now is market costs and escalation. So The way we establish this current budget is using current pricing. At this level of detail, the estimate, we have quantities of materials. We have square footage of walls. We have different types of floors, door counts, glass. So with the other projects we're working on, we're currently bidding projects, and have over the last several months. And we've adjusted our unit pricing based on those bid results. So we feel very comfortable with the numbers we're getting. Obviously, nobody can have a complete crystal ball on escalation, but we've based this on current market pricing. So instead of historical 2-3%, we're basically using it on projects that we have bid and are going to be constructed in a similar construction schedule. For example, with the excavation of steel and so forth, we're basing it on prices with the current fuel prices and stuff that's going on and what we're seeing in the market. So with that being said, even though we are on budget, in our schematic design estimate, we evaluated and identified several items to look at for additional cost savings. Just because we're on budget doesn't mean we're going to stop looking for cost savings. Throughout the project, we identified several key components through building skin that we'll keep working on. And there are some other items, again, on the site work. We had mentioned early on, we talked about there is a savings option for keeping some soils on site. This budget includes hauling all the soils off site. That decision hasn't been made, so there is an identifiable area in there that's quantifiable that there can be additional savings. And as this design evolves through the rest of the project, we will keep looking at those cost savings every step of the way. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on the budgeting or schedule or the estimating part. Okay, thank you.
I think, Nadine, we have not included land costs on this. So just want to clarify that.
And I'll give a little bit of an update as well on the schedule side. So when we started this process, we put our plan together before we jumped in. As Graham mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're on schedule, which is a great thing. We've come a long way. I think Craig is giving you guys a little bit of glimpse of some of the work that's been done and how far we've gotten. So this graph you're looking at here in the presentation tonight is essentially the same graph that we all looked at back in late March when we all spoke. I think with the exception of one thing, none of these dates have changed. And the reason that this graph is included in this presentation is just because this is extrapolated off of a critical path schedule that's probably 150 to 250 activities long. So we're pulling out the major highlights here and just making sure everybody understands where we're at. We've met all the dates we've set out for ourselves thus far, and we plan on continuing to do so. So, as we work through the design development, which we are now, as Craig has outlined where we're at, we're getting ready to not only with the building design but also with the site design that we've all talked about, getting ready to start the permitting process for the site as well as the zoning and entitlement. So the one thing associated with that, everything we've done so far, we've had a lot of control over when it comes to the design. We can make sure the design deliverables are met by a certain date or the budgets are done by a certain date. There's a little bit less control once you get into various permitting agencies such as, the Village of Woodridge zoning or whether it's DuPage or EPA or any of those things. So we are confident with the schedule that we have, with the sequence of activities with the permitting as well as the durations that we've assumed for all those different activities and different permits. But yeah, the one date on here that we changed, and I want to make sure I make a point of it before I forget, is the last item here, the Pdw Renovations Completion. Rather than putting a firm date on this one, we put an estimated third quarter of 2023. And the reason being is we're in the process of nailing down what that floor plan is going to look like in that building. So that'll ultimately determine the level of renovation that's done in there, which will in turn determine how long it's going to take to do. So other than that, all these dates have been met thus far. And like I said, we're getting ready to start the permitting process. And we've talked about possibly taking a bit of a different direction here with, if possible, with the site work related to the site permitting. But that's something that we'll, investigate.
I just want to say that when we're going in for permitting, zoning and entitlement and everything, we still continue designing on the other areas. The police facility continues to be designed on the cold storage and the salt storage. So we don't, the design does not stop, it keeps going. Even though we're in for zoning entitlement and things like that, we don't wait until the design's complete before we start the permit situation. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on the schedule?
I think it's a big one. Why isn't it done earlier?
We touched on that already.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that said, I'll let Craig talk through some of the next steps here.
Yep. So our next steps are to kind of refine so that next time we come talk with you in August, that we're looking at what we believe are closer to building options and elevations to look at. We'll lose the word study and talk about what we actually believe is a good option for you guys to consider. We'll continue design development of all spaces. So as was mentioned earlier, we completed schematic design and now we develop the design. That's in preparation in the end to, when we get to that point, what we're effectively saying when that's done in September is that we are just documenting the building to be able to construct it. So we need to have every question answered. We need to know what every color of the carpet is. We need to know where every outlet is and what the power is and all those other particular details. To do that, we need to increase our involvement of our consulting engineers. And that includes mechanical, electrical, fire protection, structural, furniture, security, detention equipment, IT, all of my best friends, or at least will be for the next bunch of months. So today, you've given us a number of good comments and I appreciate that. We will take them under advisement and then come back with some discussion points. And then next time we meet, we'll talk about exterior design and then sustainability. Any other questions? Well, we thank you for your time.
Mayor, I don't see any further questions. Mayor Cunningham.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Mayor, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wanted to be sure to thank all of our presenters this evening for the thorough and very impressive presentation of the details. Incredible. I think being able to share this with the village board, as well as our neighbors throughout Woodridge, is going to be extremely helpful. Updating us and coming before us truly makes a difference. Again, this is one of our most important and critical facilities planning. So we do appreciate all the great attention to detail and being able to answer all of the questions presented this evening by the village board. So thank you all very much.
Mayor Cunningham?
Yes, please.
If I may, I wrongfully stopped our presentation. I forgot we have our wonderful finance director here who would like to provide just a very brief update to the board on our bonds that we just issued and successfully issued. So
thank you.
Please accept my apology.
Hi, Leno.
How do you move it forward? He moves it forward for me. Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. Did you hear me like, ah? Okay, so sorry. Tonight, I just want to give a brief update on the financing side of the project. And so as the board will remember, back in early June, you approved the issuance of the bonds for the facilities project. That was to be the second of 3 expected issuances. And so at $20 million, this was the one that we did that will finance the bulk of this project. And so you'll recall back in 2019, we issued $5 million in bonds. That was to purchase the land and to pay for the early project costs. And then we also expect to have one more issuance. And if you could, I'm sorry, Trevor, move me to the next slide. How do I do that? Oh, very good. Thank you so much. We expect this last issuance to be in the range of $6 to $9 million, and that will close out our project in late 2022. So as you know, with each bond sale, the village is required to go out and get a rating on our bonds from a bond rating agency. And this time we went with Moody's. We have been using Moody's. It is very highly rated. And I'm happy to report that they came back and affirmed our rate of AA1. And so that is the second highest rating that Moody's gives out. Actually, under the AA categories, they have a 1, 2, and 3 as well. So we are at the top of that second category. We're just one step down from AAA. And so Moody's defines this rating that they apply are for obligations that are judged to be of high quality and subject to low credit risk. And so I'm very proud of the village for being able to attain and retain this rating. Armed with this rating, then our financing team began to monitor the market and found that June 24th looked very good. So we did go out and we sold our bonds on that day. And the bonds were structured as such. They had a mix of coupon rates. So we had 4% coupons, and then we also had a mix of coupons in the range of 2 to 2.5%, which was much closer to the interest rate that we received on those bonds. And that did two things for the village. The first is those 4% coupons, we were sold at a premium, right? Because it's a very attractive interest rate. And so by doing so, we received more money for those bonds and we could issue less par. And so we only had to issue $18.1 million in order to get that $20 million we were looking for with this issuance. So overall, less par means overall less interest cost. But then the 2% coupons, what they did for us was in order to keep our interest rate lower overall and our annual payments lower as well. And so when we sold our bonds, our net interest cost came in at just under 2.9% for this issuance. When we compared how we did in the market that day to other AAA rated sales, so those were the highest, most attractive issuances that were being sold in that day, we found that our rate was about 55 to 60 basis points higher than those. And so a fair spread, you would expect there would be some spread like that, right? Because they garner a higher or a lower interest rate. They're more attractive. But Spear also ran the numbers and they looked at a similar sales that happened a year ago. So they looked at some sales that had the same, right, kind of makeup. We are a AA1 and compared to what they got in the market compared to AAA sales at that point in time. And they found that the spread was much higher. They were more in like the 120 basis point spread. And so we were extremely happy with how we did in the market as a result of that. And so we did close on these bonds on July 8th. The money is sitting right now in our savings account. And we are looking to see where we can invest in some short-term investments to try to maximize, try to get it to work a little bit for us before we have to spend the money. Unfortunately, interest rates are extremely low, and so we won't expect to make much from that, but we are looking to see where we can place them to earn the highest. So here you're probably familiar with looking at these. Spear does these for us and they've been doing them. We've seen multiple of these over the course of years as we were talking about this project and now that we're into the project. So this is now our latest model. I have this one and another scenario, another option that I'll take a look at with you tonight. But there's a couple of things that I first want to note. First, this is based off of the funding need and the budget that was approved back in March by the board. And as you heard tonight, the team presented that we continue to be on track with the budget, although they are continuing to look for savings and in there. So this might look different when we ultimately is all said and done, right? But this is what we're working with right now. And secondly, this particular model here that you're looking at assumes that the village is going to use approximately $3 million in reserves from the Capital Projects Fund. And you recall this was one of the options that the board had taken a look at as we were getting ready to move forward with this project. And so based off of here, if you look at this first column of numbers, that's our 2019 bonds, right? Those are our short term. That was our $5 million issuance. And then the middle column, that is what the ones that we've just sold, right? And so here you can see that this is $18.1 million. It is the bulk of our financing for the project. And so of course, this needs to be our long-term bonds then in order to afford the annual debt payments on that. And so these go out the full 25 years and at 2.9%, the interest cost is just under $12 million. And then the third column here is going to be our last issuance sometime in December. I'm sorry, sometime in 2022. This says December, but the actual timing will really depend on when funds are needed and how the project is progressing. And as you can see, this last column here, that's our overall debt service for the entire project. The goal here that Spear was doing is to try to keep us on even annual payments. It's just much easier to plan for, much easier to budget. And so by looking at them, they've done a fairly good job of pricing and placing us in this model here. We have annual debt service that will range between 1.68 to 1.75 million. This other model here I want to go through, it's the other one that we were looking at, and this is assuming that we don't use any reserves, right? And so there was a time when we were talking about, it's going to depend ultimately, and we're going to have future conversations with the board on this as we get closer to issuing the bonds. And it'll depend on the market, right? And our actual need and what we're looking at. And the board can then determine if it wants to go with this model or continue to use the reserves. But here we are assuming not using reserves, so that last bond issuance is higher, and it's issuing $9 million approximately. So of course, you're going to see an increase in the debt service that's needed for the first 10 years. And so under this scenario here, we have interest payments that are bond payments that are due a little over $2 million instead of that 1.6. But then we drop down to the 1.7. So again, we're going to come back to the board as we get ready to do the last bond issuance, and there'll be a lot of things that we'll be looking at, and the board will be able to choose what makes the most sense at that time. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Director Aletto. Any questions from the village board at this time, please?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, Trustee Krusek.
Director Aletto, what year again does the 44 acres bond payment end?
2032.
2032, thank you. Okay, and then not necessarily for you, but will we be getting like carpet samples and paint chips and stuff like that so that we could help pick all that out, or?
I hope so, because that's the fun part, right? I hope I get to see that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please? Thank you again, Director Aletto.
Thank you very much.
Anything further, Administrator Stonich?
No, Mayor Cunningham, I promise.
Okay, thank you. So just a moment before we adjourn here this evening, on behalf of the village board and our village neighbors throughout Woodridge, special thanks to all of our team at the Village of Woodridge for just the outstanding efforts and going above and beyond since the tornado devastated our community. The Village of Woodridge is led by Administrator Stonich and Assistant Administrator Halleck, our Chief Cunningham, all of our officers, our sergeants, the department, deputy chiefs, and the entire team at our police department. To Director Bethel and Assistant Director Moline and our entire Public Works Department, Director Aletto, our finance team, and Assistant Finance Director Clary, our Community Development Director Porter and her team, our Village Administration team, our IT crew and team. We cannot thank you enough for the incredible service to our community. And I know the work is still continuing at this time, but our deepest appreciation to everyone at the village. Please share that with everyone. Also to our park district, our school district, the library. It truly does take a village. And I'm so thankful on behalf of everyone to be able to say that because of everyone's working together, we are definitely Woodridge proud. So thank you so much. And also just a few neighborly updates. If you are wanting to look to how to share the message in our community, please consider placing a Woodridge Strong yard sign and help us spread the words of resilience and being able to share the help that neighbors are providing for each other. This is a long road, and it's one way that we can help. Even if you've already bought a sign, maybe think about putting one in a friend or neighbor's yard after you talk to them. It's just a nice message throughout our community. Lastly, please consider supporting a local retired teacher and her family who actually live on one of the streets that were impacted by the tornado, and her home was impacted. But because she and her husband are retired teachers, they are collecting new toys to be given out to all the children in the impacted neighborhoods in Woodridge. So we'll put some more information out on our village website. Please consider helping Jenny and her family, along with Brittany and Heather and Rotary on the Woodridge Strong signs. It all helps to bring smiles to a lot of people in our neighborhoods and the children impacted in our community. Thank you all very much. If there's nothing further to come before the village board this evening, I would ask please for a motion to adjourn this regular meeting of the village board.
I'll move trustee Krusek.
Thank you, trustee Krusek, and a second, please.
Second, trustee Martinez.
Thank you, trustee Martinez. Going to ask please now, just for an aye, all those in favor, please sign aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. It is 8:49 PM. We thank you all so much. Please have a good evening.